Seeing our boy run up to catch up with the group after seemingly abandoning them for the safe route, the easy route, to go back and suck up to Lieutenant Surmi, the path that he figured would be the best option to get the gold, not with a child, not with a sickly dying sniper, and one leader who is a criminal that's being hunted across Russia. To see him come back after all that, it really does bring a smile to your face and show you the character development for a character who easily could have just been dick jokes, easily could have just been there for comedic relief, and don't get me wrong, pretty much every episode he is that, but it really does go to show when you get that flashback with Sugimoto and him running to show that he's going to live up to that promise he made even if it will get him killed, and honestly, him dying could be a likely possibility. At the end of the day, we don't know who's living and who's dying, and this was one heavy episode. There's a little bit of humor, but for the most part, this episode felt like a double-packed episode. It honestly felt like 40 minutes, not because it was dragging out and boring, but rather there was so much happening that it just felt like we were watching this for a lot longer than we actually were. I started this episode and it ended, I was like, wow, that was like 40 minutes, and I was like, oh wait, that was 20 minutes, and it honestly also felt like 5 minutes all at the same time. This episode, and just honestly, Ogata, he's probably one of, if not my favorite characters in Golden Kamuy. There's something about Ogata, this very experienced sniper, who you know isn't the best morally righteous person, but he's such a fascinating character, and his sniper battle I thought was not going to end with either one of these characters dying. Granted, we didn't see a death blow, it did seemingly go through his cheeks, so probably he's still alive. I'm not totally sure, but still, it did catch me off guard. I figured what was going to happen in this sniper battle was the other side was going to realize, oh, clearly a decoy, and he pretty much does that. I thought it was kind of interesting how when the sunlight came in, he realized, oh, the path has been covered up, there's this coffin in a tree, and I was like, what is going on here? I was like, is our boy really just hiding in a coffin? That doesn't really seem like him. If anything, that should be a decoy, but I was figuring like maybe he made a mistake. And to see the gunshot, and then to see just the switching around, it was so beautifully directed to give you this sense of urgency, as if you didn't know which side was really going to land that fatal blow, and it's still uncertain if he did land a fatal blow, but it feels like, at the very least, he's pretty wounded, and the idea of both of them eating snow to cover up their breath, that's a little dangerous. I mean, especially considering how long they must have been doing that. I mean, we see Ogata after the battle, he's pretty much passing out, he's hallucinating, he's reminiscing about the past and who he killed just for not being able to take blood on his own hands. It's so fascinating and horrifying to see a character who you don't really look at as a righteous hero, but to really see him in such a sickly state, it got you worried, and I don't think he's 100% better yet. I still am uncertain if he's going to be able to fight at full strength yet. He was on death's doorstep, and even if he got some decent medicine and some nice little treatments, it doesn't feel like if he was put up in the same situation, he'd be able to get out of this unharmed and things like that. Hell, he even did get harmed because of the whole illness. It's very interesting to see such a slow-paced battle be some of the most adrenaline-pumping Golden Kamuy has seen to date. And I think sniper battles are definitely very underrated in the anime medium, and they generally, when they are there, they're very action-heavy, like they're running and sniping. They're not really being snipers because snipers have a boring job in the grand scheme of military definitions, but they are some of the most strenuous, and it's really nice to have a character who feels like a masterclass sniper who doesn't, get impatient. He's literally killing himself waiting for that one shot, and he did so with grace. And it was very interesting to see the past with him and how he's very much someone who believes if you're in this situation, if you don't get your hands dirty, it's better to put a bullet in the back of your head, even if they're family. And fascinatingly horrifying, but I feel like I understand where the perspective's coming from, because he's looking at this as like, oh, you can't be a soldier in this time of war if you're not willing to do the dirty work. You can't bring about change without getting your hands dirty. It's kind of the thought process of this guy. And to see a flag bearer who honestly invoked confidence, who inspired people, seemingly doing a great job. Not the right call, I don't think he should have shot the guy, but when you're put into his mentality, when you followed him for so long, you start to see things from his point of view, and it's a frightening thought because you start seeing Ogata being like, oh, I understand why he did that, but then you take a step back and you're like, I shouldn't agree with this. I should really want to see the immortal Sugimoto come in and probably kill him because he's probably not the right person to inspire and raise someone like a Sirpa. And that's what's kind of amazing about that backstory. And I thought it was a great choice to do it when he was like basically passed out on death's doorstep. having these dreams and these hallucinations as you get some nice little like Russian and Ainu culture and things like that. I love the idea of like having this blade from an animal carcass that you put in, you let it crack, and that tells you a story. And you're like, okay, people are coming from behind. And as the episode ends, more cracks show. They don't subtitle what that means yet, but I imagine the people coming from behind would be Sugimoto's gang, but then maybe something else happened. One of them's going to die. Maybe someone on their side's going to die. It's very hard to say, but I like that about the episodes. They always keep you on your toes guessing what could be happening next. I mean, you don't kick off the episode talking about Sirpa's family and what happened with Kiro and just the whole idea of the assassination getting so much more building on. And that's why it's so hard to say, should Sirpa try to run away or should she carry on with this mission? On one hand, I don't trust the guy. I don't trust either him or Ogata. But it feels like you understand where she's coming from. If she wants answers, she has to go with the guy who knows the most about her family. But at the same time, we know with Sugimoto's gang, if they would have just stayed a couple more days, a few more days, a week at worst, they probably would have caught up with them and it would have felt a lot more safe and comforting is probably the best way to put it. And it's why it's hard to say because you love all these characters, but you know not all these characters should be trusted. For so long, this goofball who continues to make dick jokes, I was like, never trust the guy. Like, he's comedic gold, but you really shouldn't trust him. He's someone who would sell it his friends for the easiest path. Yet we see this character development in this episode to show him that he's much more than that anymore, and he really has grown a pair of balls, despite him always talking about his dick and all the brothels and women he goes with and the amount of STDs he probably has. He's someone who really didn't have a spine and now seemingly does for the people that he cares for. So characters like Ogata or Kiro, we might also change our tune on down the line, and we might even do the same thing for characters we really trust like Sugimoto and the gang and things like that. It's very hard to say what should or shouldn't happen in this show, and this episode may not have the comedic meme faces like we're used to. There's a couple of funny moments, but at the end of the day, it's mostly driven on the real story-driven content, where Sugimoto's gang in this season has been the comedic relief, where Kiro's side with the Sirpa and things like that have been the drama-filled, and now that they're getting closer and closer, and even though we are focusing more on the drama side, and some people say, oh, it's not going to be as entertaining, this is the meat of the story. We're getting into it, and we're taking season 1 and 2, and really taking the groundwork and taking it into territory that feels uncertain, but way more interesting than anything we've seen so far. Like, I really like the moment where a boy tries to take a Sirpa and say, we have to abandon. This is our opportunity. One person's down sickly. Kiro really can't do much by himself. Even though he walks out and I thought our boy was about to get his head cut off, it's interesting how he doesn't view him as like this coward or traitor. He's like, you don't have to run away from me. You don't have to do things behind my back. This is what I believe in. That's the moment where it didn't really feel malicious. It's like maybe sticking with Kiro is the right idea for now, even if they do have their own objectives and missions to manipulate the situation for the gold for whatever they want to do. It's very hard to say where the show could go from here because there's so many different pieces at play that really make it feel like any side could be in the right or the wrong or both at the same time. And that makes it really fun. This episode was just really adrenaline pumping. Ogata's whole sniper battle was amazing. I love the idea of character development for a character who really has only really thought with his dick, really standing up and continuing with a promise that he made, and just the uncertainty of where the groups are going to go, especially with the prediction. And even though it's not a magical series, it feels like there is an element of culture and spirit that does seem to come true if someone makes the prediction. I'd be interested to hear, though, for anyone's thoughts on this week's episode of Golden Kamuy, the most criminally underrated and underappreciated show, at least in the West, for the fall 2020 season. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.